us a wider overview in terms of internationally, where are we, and when we look at the cybersecurity landscape, you know, just maybe how scared should we be?
Thank you very much. So thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to come to this conference and speak with you all. My name's Craig Jones, I'm the Director of Cybercrime at Interpol. I've been there for 2 years and I run Interpol's global cybercrime programme. The main aim of the programme is to reduce the global impact of cybercrime and protect communities for a safer world. It's a simple police message. Our role as police and law enforcement, whether locally, regionally, internationally, is to protect life and property and prevent crime. You can turn that round into a cyber security. How do the two come together? Well, we're there to protect our communities. We're there to reduce the harm, reduce the impact from crime. On a global scale, with an international organisation, 194 member countries, we work with them, but trying to do that on that sense of 194 on one programme with resources which are, to be quite honest, not enough for policing effectively, we need to see how we can develop those partnerships, and that comes to those trusted partnerships. Dr. El-Kuwaiti talked about that trust, and that for me is one of the main tenets of policing. We police in our communities with trust. We are looking at criminals. We need to target the criminals, we need to impact the criminals, and we need to cause them harm. That's effectively what we do, and we stop them from harming our communities. So, as I've said, that's the trust part. But what does that global picture look like currently at this moment in time? We talk about ransomware, we talk about phishing, we look at the cost of this. And again, facts and figures, the police in this area are very hard to collate from a national to a global sense. If I wanted funding in my old position, I had to put together a business case. Put together a business case, you need the facts, the figures, what's the return on investment, and that's exactly the same. But when you just look at a couple of figures, in 2020, $350 million paid in ransom. The average $312,000 on one company. But then you look at the downtime, 21 days impact on that company. The business can't work for 21 days effectively. The impact on how it runs, how it works effectively, and that's what we have to address.
Now, I can see, you know, where Interpol is very eager to make sure that they're coordinating data and coordinating efforts around the world. But also, Colonel Saeed, when we look at what happened in Dubai here, protecting the community, ultimately I think that's what policing is all about. But, you know, now it's also about protecting business and protecting our digital space. And personally, we're all impacted. Every one of us, I think, has a mobile phone. I would maybe think some have two, and that, so it's not as if we don't know what we're talking about here. But how difficult is it in terms of being able to do your job here?
We started as early as the internet arrived to the country. So we started in 1998 by trying to bring just to the court. For this, we established our first forensic lab in order to bring these reports to understandable method for the judge. From there, we continue to elaborate and develop and evolve. And through this journey, we came across the Interpol, and we, as Dr. Tariq said, we benchmark, we innovate, we sustain, and we consistently we continue to keep doing preventive and proactive methods. We develop a platform, unified reporting system, which gave us a more transparency to the public. What we established in 2018. Sorry. This we created the crime, which gave us very good transparency on the reports. Most of these reports, we were talking about few hundred to 3,000 in 20. Sorry, maybe I'm living in the 19 era.
But it all started back then.
Yeah, it started that age. But in 2018 gave us good opportunity to accelerate for understanding the community, how they elaborate. So we came across 3,000 in 2018 to 14,000 in 2019, and now we're talking about 25,000 in 2020, which is very big incident reporting system. But these incidents, the important part of it is the community elaborating into securing their homes and citizens. So about 80% is just intel-based incident, which we can give it to the connecting dots operations and the cases which you can formulate it into full case study as a criminal incident. It's only about 20%. Most of them by priority is fraud, then hacking the processes, then social crimes, then hacking the systems, and the list goes on. Many modus operandis reported to the system. This gave us the opportunity and chance to build a knowledge base around it in terms of case management and conducting operations internationally with our partners, whether they're global partners or at the national level, or the sector leaders, for example, in the energy sector or the airline sector. So we work closely with the private sector in order to tackle the most important threats on their sector, and they take the lead into educating their sector to prevent all of these matters. And only by identifying and apprehend the criminals, you can stop the crimes. No matter how much you fix these vulnerabilities, there is another one will come on. So we keep adapting the new innovations in terms of AI or automation or.
We'll talk more about that, because I want to know how you are out there, like catching the criminals, so to speak. But Craig, when we look at, you're in the business in one way too of gathering data. You need a lot of data to make sure that you can operate efficiently and you can actually add, advantage and actually help regional police operators. But do you think that when we look at companies, who are private companies sometimes, do they trust their governments? Do they trust the police? Do they trust people like yourself who are gathering data? And do you think people would prefer to see a sense of maybe security over privacy? How difficult is it, when you look at those two, that dilemma, so to speak?
A number of questions there. I think the first one is police are now not the first responders. When there's a cybercrime, it's not the police that are always called necessarily. In fact, very small percentages are reported to police. The business will contact their IT department, the IT contact might call in a first responder. That'll come in. Their aim is to get the business back up and running. That's their role. So they'll come in, they'll sort out the attack, they'll get them back up online, and then they'll leave. Well, no police officer sees a crime officer has been to that scene. We haven't collected that data. But I think also it's not about more information. It's about us understanding what is the data and information that we need to identify the threat actors and do the attribution. So there's a number of different areas that we work in. Attribution to the actors, attribution to the infrastructure, but also identification of victims. Because as we said, having that international global crime construct working locally, it's from the bottom right to the top. So that's how we work now with private partners, and that's the key to this. At Interpol, we've got Project Gateway Initiative. We have currently 12 public-private partners. We're able to go to them and request information. They're able to come to us and share information and data. An example of that recently, with one of our private partners who are here exhibiting at the moment, we identified actors in Nigeria that were committing phishing campaign. Now, we identified victims around the world in that. So we took statements with partners in different countries. We then provided that to the Nigerian police, and also with the evidence they need to do the arrests. 3 people have been arrested. That criminal network's been taken down. But that's one small, minute operation. That's what we have to build on. We need that more effective ecosystem between ourselves, private partners, and also police nationally. Collecting data nationally when crimes recorded, it sits within that national construct. There will be pieces there that we can start aggregating globally, and that's part of what I've been discussing here whilst I've been in the UAE with our colleagues in policing about how can we aggregate those data sets. 194 member countries there who can support Interpol, and we can support 194 member countries.
Colonel Saeed, how do you actually keep track of the cyber criminals? Yes, you have the e-crime, you have assisting here in reporting, but what do you do when crime is initiated outside the country? Is it easier to manage what's happening here?
We use all the legal tools and our bilateral relations. When this crime is considered as offense in my country and the other country, we go directly for the bilateral relations and we support it with our legal and diplomatic requests, either through MLAT or any other legal connections through the Ministry of Justice or the Foreign Affairs. International relations and global connections is key success for all of these relations. We also use police-to-police intelligence sharing that is not being presented to any legal authority, but is under the supervision of the commandment and the policy and the bilateral relations between the two countries. And we have also officers who's coming through their consulates requesting some information about some offenses that is happening in our region. We also get the same relation within their country. We do the same also. So this is by global. Other method by bilateral is it through operations, international operations. We conduct shared operations together with either through international party or through organization that is tackling some type of modus operandi that is hurting one specific sector. We do this intel sharing, and we bring all the big partners on board, like for example some financial partners either through Visa or Master, or through the people involved either in the energy or any other sector. We make sure that all the intel sharing can be clear, sustained, and the policy is aligned with the policies within the country itself.
Now, Craig, how can Interpol help police operations that perhaps don't have the capacity and don't have the operations in place? And also, perhaps for people who maybe don't really know what Interpol can do in terms of cybercrime. I think we can all imagine around the world how you can cooperate in terms of policing from a physical point of view and keeping communities safe. But talk to us a little bit more, because you don't have those executive powers as such. Tell us how you manage.
No, so Interpol is very much about coordination and facilitation, but also support. We provide a number of different platforms now, which we've developed with the support of the UAE investment into Interpol. One platform is a knowledge exchange one, where we can bring policing and private sector onto a secure Interpol platform and share best practice. What are the strategies you need to build out cybercrime units, police within each country? We then have an operations platform as well, where we can now bring policing in on those operations platforms, where we can actually work on joint operations in a secure workspace. And then the other part is our Cyber Fusion platform, where we can bring data sets in. But coming back to my earlier point, we need to be very clear about the data collecting. This isn't about hoovering up big amounts of data around the world. It's identifying those threat actors, bringing those in, and then turning those into operations. And that's the regional model effectively. So we have an Africa desk, which we've just set up, where we have the Intel base in Singapore alongside our analysis and our private partners. We'll have officers working on the ground on cybercrime with specialised officers. We will develop operations and investigations and then share that into a region. Whilst I'm here as well, I've been speaking about the UAE. How can we do that in this region? A very forward-thinking, very forward-leaning region. They are, really excited about the opportunities and the prospects of that coming forward, where we can look at how the different Emirati states can work with us directly, and all the GCC states. So again, building out our ecosystem, but understanding the local communities as well, because the global context is one thing, but we need to be able to understand what are the crime that is specifically impacting within a community, and then work with it on a regional, national basis to help reduce that global impact of cybercrime and protect communities for a safer world.
And also, Colonel Saeed, I'm sure sometimes Dubai and the region here can actually perhaps help other countries as well. But you talked there earlier when you were giving us that little bit of a history lesson. Has it been to your advantage in terms of policing that this city is so digitally connected and all of the departments and everybody works together, and also that the critical infrastructure here is still owned by the government? I mean, in other countries they don't have that, not necessarily luxury, but does it give you a little bit more element of control, and does it help make your job a bit easier the way you can help others?
Well, in terms of helping other countries, we when I was chairing one of the working groups in the Interpol, we conducted a program for capacity building among the region, all the MENA region, and officers came and we shared knowledge, know-how, all of these program, and this also enhanced our trust among the region, and the transparency we shared during these workshops. Also, and we're working closely with our private sector in two ways. One of them is protecting private sector from cyber incident, because both government entities and private sector, they will need help of the expertise we have, and other private sector can elaborate and be partner with us into giving the entities, or either private or government or individuals, the knowledge they need in order to secure their services, their home, their important assets in terms of cyber. Because the human elements, there are many evils in the global world. When they created the network, the internet, they were not aware about how evilness a human can be. Therefore, we step forward, and we need to bring those people to justice, cyber criminal groups, but it becomes more complex when organized criminal groups come into the arena, and they started to create a division of themselves, trying to monetize or get benefit for their operations. But we are still working closely with our partners here, either the Interpol or our national level partners here, or the regional colleagues who's working with us, facing the same threats and modus operandi from the either the same actors or from the same region.
We've only got about 5 minutes left. We're doing the express detail and information, but hopefully you'll get an opportunity to talk to people. But Greg, when we look at the headlines and we look at the companies that get attacked, very often they're big companies. You would think that everything is in place in terms of security. People are not going to maybe physically invade these companies, but they still manage to do it digitally. Is there, and then it costs them a lot of energy and effort and time and inconvenience to clean up, so to speak. So is there a danger that maybe everybody is not being proactive enough? What can we do?
So I think it's the same in a physical sense. We have to protect ourselves. There'll always be an opportunity. There'll always be a vulnerability. And it's about identification of those vulnerabilities, patching of those vulnerabilities, but also ensuring there's that culture and that awareness. We've had this digital economy, it's grown with us now 20, 30 years. We're still that culture, that understanding that we are vulnerable at times. We're either vulnerable through our infrastructure, we're vulnerable through our staff, we're all vulnerable at times in different ways. And the cyber criminals will attack those vulnerabilities. But I think, as we'd say now, we're looking at the cyber criminals going for more of a business model, because they can see the financial gain there. And if it's a financial gain, that's what criminals are after. It's the greed. And that's how we have to try and then disrupt that model effectively. In a law enforcement construct, on a national construct, very, very challenging because it's around the world. So how do we look at that policing model? How do we change the policing model? How do we change working directly with industry and that dare to share mentality that we need to have?
And again, just, and I'm going to give you the last word saying in just a minute, but when we look at even the language, I mean, we're looking at kidnapping and ransom and all of that. And sadly, you know, the hackers out there, and they're getting paid their ransom sometimes. I mean, is there general advice around the world to say maybe it's not a good thing as it's not a good thing in physical crime?
So I think that's again a very difficult question. That's a national question. If your family member was kidnapped, you would probably pay a ransomware effectively. If your business is, you know, not able to operate, you've got some business decisions to make. You know, the policing advice is not to pay a ransom, but again, some countries are looking at potential legislation to put in place about not paying a ransom, or if you are subjected to attack, you then work with law enforcement. So there's a sort of carrot and stick approach. But again, this is as the cybercrimes develop, the legislations develop, and the communities develop as well.
And Saeed, when we look forward, what's going to make things easier, and what's a message, I suppose, to the community, to small business, to big business, to make sure that they protect themselves and maybe cooperate a little bit more to make your job simpler?
I think everybody need to prepare for what is next. Keep innovate and enhance your networking, either national level or global level, professional at professional stage also, and jump the next curve, or even better, create it if you can. If you can create a new curve that is going to lead the world, you can elaborate on this, and I think we have the competency to do so.
Super. Well, we have to leave it there, I'm afraid. I think, you know, with the great work that you're doing at Dubai Police, and of course the coordination that's coming from Interpol, I think we have great, confidence in the fact that you're looking out for us. Everybody has to look out for themselves, and then we have Dubai Police, and even beyond that, you know, looking at this. So this is essential work, and you know, it's good to get a little glimpse into just some of the challenges you have. So thank you both so much, Craig Jones and Colonel Saeed Al Hajri. Thank you both so much.